Okay, so we're good, we're unmuted.
Mhm.
All right, I've got 6:30 PM. It's been a couple months, so give us some grace on going through the regular rules, but I hereby call the meeting of the City of Riverside Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Here.
Mr. Cron.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Timber.
Here. All right, we have a set of minutes from our last meeting, which was the April 25th meeting. So if there are any comments or corrections to the minutes from April, please speak now.
Move they stand as approved.
Seeing no comments or corrections, the minutes stand as approved. Okay, and can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Here.
Second for that?
Second.
The agenda is approved. That doesn't need to vote. All right. Okay, with that, so we're moving on to a reminder just to please adjust the microphone, speak directly into it when making public comments. Same for when we get to the public portion. I'll remind for the podium up there. But with that, we're going to jump into the first public hearing case, BZA case 23/3 at 2600 Valley Pike. Would the city like to swear in and tell us what's going on here?
I, Nia Holt, affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge. Address is 5200 Springfield Street. All right. This is a case regarding variances from UDO section 1107.9 to allow a commercial structure to encroach into the required side yards. There are two variances, one on the north side and one on the south side yard. Both of them require a 50-yard setback or 80% variances or more. This is the zoning map. You can see the property outlined in blue. It is in the B2 General District zoning district. A little background on this case. It is formerly two lots that were consolidated in one. This was one lot. This was the second one. This may be familiar to some of our older or more, who've been on the board a little longer. It was before the board in 2002, was approved, but has expired and is before you again. The proposal is for an auto accessories business. This existing structure will be the retail space. And they are proposing here, as I move to the aerial map, to put a accessory structure that will store the inventory for that retail use. Here is the site plan where I mentioned that they have that proposed accessory building, the existing building, the entrance on Valley will be closed, and this one will be the entrance for that accessory building. Again, I mentioned two variances. The first one is this side yard here. This is residential structures here. Now they are zoned commercial, but there is residential use. Our code says just residential. So that's why there is a variance on this side. This is residentially zoned and also residential structures. So this is the second variance on this side. 10 feet on this is what the reduction would be. So from 50 to 10, and this is 8.5 from 50 to 8.5. So for variance 2. Here is the front of the subject site. The adjacent property to the south. This is adjacent property to the west. And that was across Pleasant Valley, the second photo I showed you. This is the residential property to the northeast, excuse me. This is across Valley Street. This is the variance area as a whole. So this would be variance 1, variance 2. Here's a closer view of variance 1. And here's variance 1 from the rear. Variance 2 from the front. And variance 2 from the rear. And here's another view of that existing structure. You saw it from the front earlier in the presentation. And the variance area is around here. You can see some of the residential structures I mentioned here. And the applicant also has an existing business within Riverside, and that's catty-corner on Pleasant Valley and Valley Street. So this is staff's findings. Based on our standards of approval, we find that the variance is not adequately justified and does not meet those standards of approval. We do recommend, denial of the requested variance for variance 1. It is a substantial variance. As I mentioned, it's reducing the setback from 50 to 10. It will place a commercial structure close to residential property and does not meet the spirit or intent behind the zoning code. Very similar to variance 1. We are recommending denial for very similar reasons, but it will not meet not just the zoning code spirit and intent, but also it will not meet the standards for the fire code as well. These are your required actions to consider the standards for approval for a variance, and you have 2 variances to consider. You can approve the request, approve with conditions, deny the request, which is staff recommendation, or continue to another date. Are there any questions for staff?
Got a couple questions, Naya.
Yes.
So you mentioned the fire code potentially being a problem for the second variance, but
Yes.
is that not a problem for the first?
No, the requirement is 10 feet around, and they're meeting it on the first one,
Okay.
but not on the second one, which is 8.5.
Okay, and then another question on kind of the difference between the 2 variances. So variance 2 for the south property
Yes.
line, that if you can go back to the site plan, maybe it's probably the
Mhm.
easiest way to. That's perfect.
Yep.
So on the south side, right, it goes up against R2 zoned residential.
Well, maybe
right?
I'll go here so you can see.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so
R3.
or R3
Mm-hmm.
residential, and then commercial is what it backs up to, but those are
Residentially used properties.
residential use
Yep.
properties. Okay.
And our code states that the setback is for residential. It doesn't say district or use, just says residential.
So our code doesn't call out residential.
District or use, just says straight residential. So they have to be 50 feet from these residential use and this residential district.
I have a question, Naya,
Yes,
on this 129.52 feet. That is where the parking, and that is where the residential windows are on that side. And how many feet would you say would be from a car to the house?
on the site plan here.
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
So we're talking those cars would be right underneath those windows there
Yes,
to that residence.
Yes, but that is not,
on this variance.
that's not the side
So there
of the
is.
property that that the 2 variances we have.
Yeah, okay. I just
So
had a
there
question
is,
about that.
and we have discussed this with the applicant, and that's under a different, probably a different variance application. There has to be a landscape buffer around here, and that would include that 10 feet. So if he has to ask for that reduction, that'll be on a separate application.
I'm looking at the same map here. It says there's an abandoned house. Now, is the area that has the dots there, is that all, that's zone residential?
Yes, all of this is zone residential.
So, I'm just trying to think outside the box.
Yeah.
If
So
it's
this one,
Mhm.
no one is living there, but someone does own it. They could renovate it at any time, and sell it to someone. They could rent it out.
Have you been
Someone
in-
does live here
Right.
and someone does live here.
Well, because it's zone residential,
Yeah.
that wouldn't help them if they were able to get that property. So, okay, I see what you're saying. All right. I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
a way to
And it doesn't,
help them.
Yeah. And then if we go back. This is only 35 feet
Right.
plus this,
Yeah, it's a
8 feet.
wedge.
And the 50 feet is the requirement.
Mhm.
That was gonna be one of the things I wanted to point out, not really a question, maybe a clarification, but the width of that
Yeah.
lot is barely 50 feet. The tangential side all the way at the back on the east side is 65 feet.
Yeah.
So that gap there wouldn't even have 50 feet
Mhm.
to work with.
And on the variance too, that's the one that is not fire code approved. Okay.
I'm good. Any other questions for the city? Good. Good. Lisa, good. All right, thank you. All right. Okay, so now let's move on to the public portion. So I've got the time as 6:40 PM. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward. And if you can, when you get up to the podium, adjust the microphone, speak into it as much as possible, please. And I believe the oath should be up there for you on the podium.
Right. I, Yusuf Al Zain, affirm that the testimony I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeal is correct to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
But thank you. Let me start by, we're not violating any fire codes. The building code, the fire code requires a building to have access to the site with 150-foot hose reel. And we meet that hose reel that is required by the NFPA. So we're not violating any fire code. Initially, when we appeared in front of the board last year, we actually were given 0 setback from the valley side, which is the residential, but it's zone business. Then the fire department changed their mind after a month or so, and they required us to have the 10-foot setback. So we had to reappear in front of the board because then we didn't meet the setback from the neighboring property. So we provided everything that the fire department asked us last year to do. This year, they came with a reason that they want the 20 feet plus, and we have 24-foot entrance, if you look at the map, that will allow the apparatus to get very close to the building. It's only 54 feet long. So they have the 150 hose reel required to fight a fire, God forbid something happens. So just I need to clarify that I'm not sure where the violating the fire requirement came from. This year, as a matter of fact, they said that we need 20 feet. And then I contacted Naya earlier last week. If we give 20 foot, we're already in the neighbor's yard. And our argument is not necessarily an argument. The owner was very interested in buying the house. And we knew that the city of Riverside bought the house. No?
No, we don't own the house.
Okay, but the claim was that they bought the house and the owner approached the city to buy it, but somebody else bought it. So there must be confusion there on who owned the house before it was sold again. We approached the bank, what do you call it? The house bank, land bank with Montgomery County. They didn't offer us any information that we can buy that house. Regardless, it's still abandoned. So a year in, it's still boarded up. And it's your prerogative. You can hold up a business from going in, waiting for a house to be reconstructed. We proposed a fence all around the property, which will be to protect either side of the house. Even the house that Ms. Carpenter mentioned will have a fence as well on that side, and it's already butting the property. So whoever authorized that to happen, it's still a business, and it used to be a bar before it was abandoned, that property. It wasn't even something decent. So we're requesting that we did our best to meet our conditions, the city's conditions. We might appear in front of you maybe next month for the landscaping and the curb and gutter, or that's a different meeting. So we might be in front of you again to ask for a permission not to install landscaping or curb and gutter on Pleasant Valley or Valley Street because you don't have the infrastructure. But I'm asking you to give the owner a chance. It was my mistake when the city manager corresponded with the owner back in November. At that point, I was not able to continue the job. You know, the demands were overwhelming, and the interpretation of the regulation between myself and the city, we came to an impasse. The owner didn't see my message that I'm not working on the case until Naya, I think in May or April, reached out to us saying that we have to reapply for the variance. So I apologize for that. If you can consider our variances, we would appreciate it.
Yeah. Do we have any questions for Mr. Elzane?
I do. The existing structure that's on the property, would that be demolished or are you going to refurbish it?
No, it will be reused as a retail, as the primary structure on that site.
Okay, so you're going to just refurbish it
Correct.
and continue to use it. Okay.
Right. And we will apply for the permitting, whatever it takes to get a CO, a certificate of occupancy.
Mhm.
We'll follow the proper regulations that the county will ask us to do, as long as we meet the zoning conditions.
Mhm.
So this is what we need, the zoning certificate, in order for the permitting process to continue.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Ms. Carpenter?
I think the situation is, we have a fire department saying one thing and you saying something else. So I have to, I'm not, we've got to figure out what's going on there. I don't really understand what the conditions are or what the difference is. So-
Understood. It is, Naya has an email that she shared with me last week based on my question, why are we demanding a 20-foot setback around the building? As long as we meet the 150 hose reel.
It wasn't around the building. It's for the road leading up to.
Yeah,
building,
we have
so.
24 feet, so it's even, I thought they're asking for 20 foot on either side,
No.
but it's only the entrance and we have a 24-foot entrance. So the apparatus can really reach, as you can see on the side, we're paving up to the building. It's not left as gravel or grass, so the apparatus can reach up to the building, God forbid, if they want to fight a fire. But no, I respect that. If you need to let us know later, that's fine.
Thank you.
No other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Elzane.
Thank
All right, is there anyone else present who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Please approach the podium. Adjust the microphone again, and then there's an oath on the podium there. If you could read that, please.
I, Mahmoud Rababa, affirm that testimony I am about to give before the Board of Zoning is correct to the best of my knowledge. Actually, what happened after we got the approval last time, there was an email that was sent by the city manager. I didn't go through the details, and at that time, my engineer quit on me. So I'm willing to go ahead and try one more time, see if we can do something. That's all what I wanted to say.
Any questions for Mr. Rababa? I guess I have one question. If you're unable to put this structure on the back half of the lot there, will you still be able to make use of that lot for your business, or would you have do something else or not be able to use it?
Actually, my business across the street from the lot, and I bought the lot when the city manager Mike was here, and he suggested to me to buy the lot, to convert it to commercial in order to use it. I remember he visited me at the shop, and I told him at that time, if you guys will approve it to be commercial, that I can use it, I'll go ahead and buy it. And this is what happened. But you know how the process goes, very slowly. And he was not there when I finished combining the two lots together. I'd like to have it to where I use it for my business, my current business, extra storage, so I can meet fire department requirements. That's what was in my plan. But if there is no way, or I couldn't get the approval, then I have to think about something else.
Storage isn't permitted in the B2 zoning district. But if it's going to be storage for the business across the street, then I'm just trying to understand was said. And
I'm selling rims, accessories, tire shop accessories. So I need more space.
Mhm. I
I'm
think,
not going to do installation at the location. All what I need is to have more space.
Mhm.
so what I'm trying to understand, and will that site be used as the second location for your?
We were under
business?
the impression that it was retail.
Retail, yes.
It is retail, totally independent, luckily owned by the same owner. That doesn't mean to be that it's a continuation of that business. That one is a tire replacement store. He has all the equipment to change tires and everything. This one is retail. Last year, when we came in front of you, in order to meet the fire department's situation, we created this site to complement that business by moving some of the tires from the existing store to the new location as part of his retail business only. So it will be still retail to sell tires. And if the person that he sold the tire for want to install it, then they'll go to the other store and install the tires. That location would be rims and selling tires not to install on that site.
Okay. Do we have is there a business plan that we can see or
No, I mean.
Is there-
He's already selling actually from that store online. If you like a rim for your car, reach out to him. He's selling it already online. We're storing the rims inside that building.
will there be signage, people going in and out to this location?
Everything is done.
Like a
per the
store.
code. Like a store, like AutoZone, but on a smaller scale that sells on the rims. Or he can sell rims online. So that's basically the intent of the new business is retail.
So he will have customers coming in and out as a retail store.
If they elected to come into the store, yeah.
Here's what we're looking at here. That second building that you want to build, is it storage or is it retail?
No, it is storage. It is storage for an accessory building to the retail.
And that's what's Naya is coming across there.
No, Naya's point is it can be storage used for the other business.
It can't be
across-
storage, period,
Yeah,
right?
Well, it can't be storage, yes, for the other.
For the other
business.
business.
Yeah,
But it
Okay.
can be storage for the current retail store.
it needs to be, if the site is going to be retail and you're going to have stored tires there, then the primary use of this new site needs to be retail.
100%. We never disagreed with that. This was a new thing this year that we received a comment about it, even though last year it was repeatedly discussed as such. And I'm not sure why it's coming back, questioning the owner if he's going to install tires there. New staff maybe raising some questions. We responded to that already.
That
once.
happens sometimes, right?
Right.
Imprecise language too. I think that there can be, it's very slippery slope sometimes when you start talking about the difference between storage, retail, one owner owning two, businesses, one business, that it becomes entangled very easily.
Understood. And that's why he's still committed, Mr. Ababa, to still go through with the business if you approve it. If not, he's willing to abandon it. So it's not a matter of death or life for him. He just wants to stay in Riverside. If that's possible, that's great. If not, he'll abandon the project.
Thank you, Mr. Rababa. Thank you, Mr. Elzane. Is there anyone else here who, well, there's no one else here who'd like to speak in favor or opposed. So with that, at 6:55, I'll close the public portion. Okay. All right, board members, what do we think? So we've got variance 1, which backs up to what is currently commercial zoned property that is residential. And then we've got variance 2 that backs up to currently unoccupied residentially zoned property, which is interesting because I think we're interpreting the two different sides of the property the opposite way. One, we're leaning on the zoning, the residential zoning, and the other, we're leaning on the current use. It's funny that they're opposite, or maybe not funny, but it's curious. I find that interesting. I also find the size of this lot, the way it is combined, difficult to use for anything, given the unique shape and size of it. I think we often see cases where someone is attempting to use, whether it's for a home or for a business, where they're trying to use an oddly shaped lot, right, like this L shape here, or a corner lot that often has some sort of setback or a front yard, side yard type issue that we deal with. So I do think it probably just on that face alone warrants some further review, which is how it ends up in front of us now. I guess what I'm getting at is core to my point is that there's nothing that you could build on that and satisfy the setback requirements from the north or south property line.
Correct.
At all.
A question for Maya. On the proposed accessory building, what if there was nothing, no flammable storage? Would that make a difference?
It could make a difference. I think I want to just point out to Reese's point. This was the applicant bought this property, created this situation and combined it. So
Mhm.
it's not those unique cases that we always come
Right.
across.
Mhm.
It was a residential lot before. And some of those setbacks are not as great on R3. It's only a 5-foot setback instead of a 50. So I just want to point that out.
That's
If
a
it
good point.
wasn't, created to be a commercial lot, it wasn't combined. And then if it wasn't flammable and it was still commercial, there may have been, you would still have that 50-foot setback.
So it doesn't matter if it's flammable or not.
Yeah, you still
Yeah.
have
That's what I'm
that,
hearing.
but yeah, you still have that 50-foot setback.
No matter
Yeah.
what the structure is, it could be
Yeah.
storage and
Or what
boss
it changes,
khakis,
yeah.
and it's still you can't.
So
Yeah.
There's
that's,
nothing you can.
is that,
So,
am I
I mean,
interpreting that correctly?
yes.
No matter what, it's not gonna
so,
work.
mhm.
That's what I'm.
So, yeah, staff was not in favor of the rezoning in the first place.
Why they rezone it?
Staff did not, city council.
Oh, okay.
It was, yeah. We're here now.
Mhm.
So
So
the question is could it be used?
right. So
There's no options is what we're being told.
It would definitely take some unique planning. I think if it was an investment site,
If it was what?
and in the long term, we have a land use plan, and I would have to look at that, the new one, to see what could be done. I'll leave my answer at that.
Okay.
so
The answer is what it is.
Yeah. To enter back into the world of I guess my opinion on how I see this, the only interpretations that would give them leeway are something that makes us think that the setback on one or both sides should be less for some reason. And the angle, if I remember right, not that, we should base anything off of, something we looked at before, but part of the angle we looked at before was whether, some of the properties were occupied. And whether, work was going on in them, or there was a commercial use going on in them, or a residential use going on. I don't see either of those holding water in this case at all. I just don't see how we could approve either variance, because I don't see an interpretation that gets us to something that has a setback different than what the code lays out for us. But interested to hear your thoughts, board, on that.
That's, I mean, just looking at, we're looking at this, the city code here, and you can't do anything beyond that right now.
Well,
You
I
know,
mean,
50 and 50, that's 100 foot. And we've got a building there that is, what is that, wide 30?
I don't know, something like that.
So you're over 130 feet or something like that, right? That's the size of lot that you're gonna have to have.
Mhm.
I mean, we could make a variance of if it was 49 feet, right? And approve something like that, but we're not, it doesn't look. You got 10 feet on one side, 8.5 feet on the other. We might be within fire code on one side, but we still have a city code too at the same time. I have a lot of different, fire code and OSHA code are always different as well. And I deal with that in business where I deal with. So you have to play with both, and you have to be approved by both.
Lisa, Tim, anything else? Thoughts on
No.
that?
I mean, if something were reconstructed on variance 2, where it would come in and there would be a 10-foot difference, then it would be all around, it would be within.
Fire, but not city.
Right.
And you'd
Right.
have to,
Right, it would be within fire, which is, I think, the most important.
city is still important
But
based on,
city's still important. we
because of
know.
the commercial and residential use.
Right,
The board has granted variances when they have not been so substantial.
Right, I think that was
Yeah,
your
well,
point,
that was my
right?
point,
Yes,
and
no,
it's
so if
not
it was.
But it's not so substantial. We've
Yeah,
got a large, we're
Yeah.
taking
Mhm.
40 feet away, 39, 41.5 feet away. That's substantial compared to 2 or 3 or 4 feet.
80 some odd percent, right? That was
Yeah.
the 80 and 83%
Yeah.
encroachment, not 8.
Not 8,
So,
correct.
okay. All right, I'm ready to vote. Anybody else?
Would you like
I
me to
wish
bring
there
your
had better
options?
answers, but I don't know if there are any. Because it's an audio.
oh,
What was that, Naya?
Would you like me to bring your options up again?
Oh, sure. That'd be great.
Yes, please.
I'm all about options.
And there's 2 motions.
Okay, yeah, so required actions, right? So we have variance 1 for the north side yard and then variance 2 for the south side yard. I'm inclined to lean towards deny
Mhm.
request. So given that, regarding case number 23, triple lot 3 at 2600 Valley Pike, I move that for variance number 1 for the north side yard, that we deny the request. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Timbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter,
yes,
Mr. Schneider.
Yes.
Carries. Okay, and then on variance number 2 for the south side yard for case 23 triple lot 3, 2600 Valley Pike, I move that we deny the request. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Timbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Cron,
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter,
yes.
Mr. Schneider.
Yes.
Okay, with that, the motion carries. Okay, so given that, I think that's all of our public hearings for today, so we can move on into zoning administrator discussion topics. We could talk after the meeting. Yes, get back together.
You cannot build anything on Venice, so if you have these regulations.
Mhm.
Nowhere up and down, very steep, with a lot that is less than even a quarter of an acre. You will not have any business on that.
Understood.
That was the accusation that we were looking for your support on. This is made to take that into consideration. It's not the honest fault that the city is on a business for less than half an acre.
Yes, and I think that's understood. I think what we look at, and this comes up a lot, is a legislative issue versus a quasi judicial issue, and we're a quasi judicial body, not a legislative body.
This is the fault. That's the recommendation afterward to make some recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Holt?
Share some changes. All right, my next topic is share some changes that are coming down to the zoning code that affect the Board of Zoning Appeals. Chapter 1105 is where the development procedures happen. That is where the variance procedures and appeal procedures rest. We wanted to look at how to clarify those procedures and looked at several cities around the region. Planning Commission passed the recommended text changes a few months ago, and it's now with City Council. So I just wanted to let you know that update and what's going to be looked at City Council. So here are some general changes. We consolidated a few chapters. We have pre-application meetings that are required so that we can sit down with applicants and really walk them through the process, how to reapply for denials if that happens, which we know that happens. We don't have that in our code now, what that looks like. We also have a set zoning permit. We had several, we just have one, all that's consolidated into one, and adjusted timeframes so it better reflects what staff can really do with our capacity. So these are the ones that really apply to you. You don't see them as often, but I know it was some of the first ones you guys saw. Appeals. Right now, we're looking at changes that require appellants to list the basis for their appeals and list where their appeal relates to our zoning code or our UDO, the sections that either the Planning Commission or staff violated. So it's not just, I don't like the decision that was made, and so I'm appealing. They have to have a clear basis for their appeal. So we hope that really helps you make your decisions better when appeals come before you.
That's a huge change. I think that's going to help the citizens of the city, right? Anybody that has an appeal that they need, they will be much better prepared to go through and lay out what the case is and give, us, the board a chance to really actually dig into what the problem with the, interpretation of the code or whatever it might be actually was, because that's a frustrating process for people.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good change.
So we hope that sets them up, I won't say for success, but better understand the process and for what they're actually upset about and when the code themselves in the process of the permits and all of that. So they're not just appealing and spending money that they don't need to. So that's one thing. Also, we're moving the threshold for major variances from 15% to 20%. So more will be staff reviewed instead of coming to you. I hope that gives you a little bit more relief, although some of the other changes with the accessory structure code has already played a role in that. But this is only our third meeting of the year. So yeah, but that's another change. And we're also consolidating variances with waivers. There were some other consolidations, but we want to make sure that there is a more streamlined process. So if there are waivers that can go with some of the variances, one example would be if we have a design waiver that goes with a fence height, which is a dimensional variance, it would be heard by you as well. So it doesn't have to go to Planning Commission and to BZA. It's just one hearing that they go to. So they don't have to go to 2 meetings. So something to be prepared for. Any questions of those or? Yep. So if the schedule is still rolling, this won't go into effect until probably the fall of this year. But just wanted to give you a heads up of that coming down the pike.
Great.
The final thing is, as you can see, there's still 4 members and we're still looking for a 5th. Tell your Riverside friends and neighbors that we are still looking for a 5th member of the BZA. And hopefully we can celebrate that new member with a retreat to get them trained up on some of the things you guys have been learning at our earlier meetings, and we'll just refresh them and you on those items. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Cool.
That's all I have. If
Okay.
you guys have anything that you would like to share.
Great.
Have any names that you want to pass on to me?
If you do come up with any names, definitely let Naya know. If anybody out there in TV land is interested, reach out and we'll try to get you any info we can. Any other matters by the board?
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Yes.